When it comes to conditioning, it's valuable to keep in mind these vital principles: the big four, the 5 principles of conditioning, and the types of muscular contractions.
Now, obviously, there's a lot of information on this slide. You can use it as a study guide when preparing for tests or to refer back to for general information. Now I will take time to go over each of these points individually.
The big four refers to the basic elements that refer to the body's condition. Your strength condition is measured by the maximum amount of action in a single movement. The condition of your muscular endurance is measured by your ability over time, as is cardiorespiratory endurance. And flexibility, of course, refers to the amount of movement available at each joint, more specifically with the amount of stretch at each tendon. The 5 principles of conditioning are the warm-up and cool-down,
which can involve many combinations of aerobic exercise which increase heart rate and circulation to the major muscle groups.
The principle of use it or lose it, as we discussed in Wolff's Law. Proper alignment. Progressive overload.
There are 2 principles that go along with progressive overload. First, there must be enough weight to stimulate muscle growth, and second, continually adding weight over time.
And the sequence or arrangement of exercise.
A good general rule to go by when arranging your exercise is to start with the larger muscles and progress to the smaller muscles. In other words, chest before shoulders, shoulders before triceps, triceps before biceps, and so forth.
The types of muscle contractions are isometric, concentric, and eccentric. Isometric muscle contractions are holding a flexed muscle, neither giving in or pulling against gravity. Concentric muscle contractions bring 2 levers together at a joint. Eccentric muscle contractions allowing gravity to take over with resistance.
There are actually quite a few other principles you might consider when it comes to your conditioning program. Here I'd like to comment on 3 or 4 others more specifically. Adaptation. According to the Boot Camp Military Fitness Institute, adaptation occurs during periods of rest when the body recovers from the acute homeostatic disruption and/or residual fatigue, and as a result may compensate to above baseline levels of physiological functioning. It is important that exercisers receive sufficient rest between training sessions, after periods of increased training overload, and both before and after competitions. Adaptation allows the individual to either do more work or do the same work with a smaller disruption of baseline value. Progression. Again, the Military Fitness Institute states, this is the change in overload in response to adaptation. Sports scientists suggest progression occurs best in a series of incremental steps, called step loading, in which every 3rd or 4th change is actually a slight decrease in training load. This step down allows for recovery, which leads to adaptation. Each step should be small, controlled, and flexible. A continuous unbroken increase in training load should be avoided. Plateau. The Military Fitness Institute further states that progress is rarely linear, predictable, or consistent. When an individual's adaptation or performance levels off, a plateau has been reached. However, this should be interpreted relative to the training regime. Causes of plateau include too much time spent doing the same type of workout, using the same equipment, and in the same environment. Or it could be there's either too much or too little competition. Plateaus are a normal consequence of a maintenance overload and may also occur normally, even during a well-designed, well-implemented step-loading program. But when an individual's adaptation or performance levels decrease, then retrogression has occurred. Retrogression may signal overreaching or overtraining, and reversibility is the reversal of achieved physiological adaptation that occurs after training has stopped. Additionally, variety and tedium is another principle to consider. Vary your exercise routines and activities. It's easy to become bored with physical training if you perform the same routine every time. So it is important to mix things up by breaking up your training routine and include different activities. Not only will this prevent boredom, but it also can increase your motivation and help you achieve better results. And finally, we should consider the psychological aspect. Another important element beyond the physiological training is the principle of motivation. Any training program should also have elements of fun and interspersing normal training sessions with games, variations, and special events can help make sessions as enjoyable as possible. Now let's get a little more specific. Your conditioning needs specific goals. Are you trying to get more flexible? Do you want more strength? Or do you want more bulk? Are you looking for more cardiovascular endurance? Let's consider the adaptation process one more time. According to bodybuilding.com, your body has a single uniform purpose: to survive. To do that, it communicates with your environment via adaptation. The environment starts the conversation by imposing stress on your body, and your body responds by selectively adapting in a way that best suits its survival chances. Training, then, is a conscious communication with your body, imposing self-selected stress to mold your frame into a desired shape, or increasing your capabilities beyond their current state. Your training should take volume into account. Training volume is the number of sets and reps you do in a given workout. The more exercises you do for a body part, and the more sets you do for a given exercise, the greater your training volume. Of course, there are other variables that impact how your body will adapt to the training stress you impose on it. So let's assume your goal is to build muscle size. This is called hypertrophy. You already know that hypertrophy requires more total training volume than building absolute strength. But that doesn't mean you get to eliminate load from the discussion. You're still going to use the heaviest weight possible, but the need for more training volume dictates that the weights are lighter than those used for building absolute strength. There are a variety of breakdowns for this type of exercise, which I'll let you look at on your own by taking a look at the links in the description. So what if we're trying to build strength exclusively? To build absolute strength, the stress communication changes in a few ways. For one, as stated earlier, you'll use less training volume. You'll also include heavier weight and fewer reps per set. Strength programs are structured similarly to hypertrophy programs, but you're drastically cutting the number of reps per set because you're significantly increasing the weight. Main lifts fall in a percentage range between 80 to 90% of your 1 rep maximum. At certain times, however, strength programs increase load above 90% of your 1 rep maximum. At those times, the total reps are significantly cut further. Bodybuilding.com suggests that rest periods between sets are an eternity compared to those of a hypertrophy program, but they're necessary since heavier loads are more neurologically demanding than lighter ones. The nervous system requires considerably more rest than does muscle tissue. Rest 3 to 5 minutes between sets of the day's main lift. Now there's at least one more thing to consider with any conditioning goals. A popular athletic expression says it best: you can't out-exercise a bad diet. The type and quantity of food you eat on a daily basis has a critical effect on the effectiveness of your exercise program. But this is a topic we will go into more detail on in our next episode, all about nutrition. As always, thanks for watching and supporting the channel. Leave us a like and consider hitting that subscribe button below. And I'll see you next time.